Welcome to His Real Estate Com Dallas. My name is Yulia Brown, and I have a very special guest here with Aqua Periit, Mr. Casey Reefer. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Aqua Periit, tell me, what does that mean?
Well, Aqua Periit Restoration, I came up with the name when I was thinking about what should be something catchy. And being that I'm a former U.S. Marine, I wanted to keep with my Latin background. The Marine Corps motto is Semper Fidelis, that's always faithful. So Aqua Periit is water removal. So it just had a nice flow to it, and aqua being starting with A, it'll be pretty much at the top of a search engine when you start looking for it.
Aha, think strategy here, like a true Marine.
A little strategy.
So tell us about your Marine service.
Well, I did 10 years in the Marines. I was mostly stationed out in California. I was stationed over in Japan for a while. I really liked it over there. And then I did a couple of combat tours over to Iraq and Afghanistan. I volunteered every time when it was time to go. I was like, send me. I volunteered to go.
Wow.
So after my last combat tour, I went back to college in North Carolina. I got my undergrad from University of North Carolina, and then a couple of years ago, I went back to grad school, and I got my master's in strategic management from Michigan State University.
Wow, what a journey.
Yes, it was not the traditional journey, but I'm not a traditional person by any means.
There
So,
you go. You're not
you know.
a traditional guy. I like that. And thank you for your service, of course.
Sure.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. And before we get into the new venture with Aqua Periit, tell us, what did you do before this?
Before this, I worked in telecom. I worked for T-Mobile doing some of their fiber negotiations. So I would negotiate with the vendors as to what would be the price to run a fiber site to a particular location based off of what the engineers came back and saw we need a site here to offload some of the traffic. So I did that back and forth negotiation, and that was my first major exposure into face-to-face with a client. Previous jobs I didn't have that, but that one at T-Mobile, it always put me face-to-face, and everybody was telling me, man, you always have such a personality, you draw people in, you should get into sales.
Absolutely, absolutely. But this is like your 180-degree switch.
It's a complete 180 degree. I had no forethought about going into running my own business. And I talked to a friend of mine, and I was helping somebody out doing some restoration work. And my buddy suggested, he's like, go into business for yourself.
So how was this venture born?
I would definitely say that it came out of necessity. You never think, who am I going to call if my roof gets damaged? Who am I going to call if my house gets flooded? And even if you have a plumber who you call, the plumber's primarily going to come and stop the leak. But then what happens with all of the wet flooring or
The
your
aftermath.
wall? The aftermath, exactly. Who deals with the aftermath? And there wasn't too many players in that space that wouldn't charge an arm and a leg, because they knew that, you have to come to us, or else your place is going to get infested with mold, and your floors are going to warp if you have wood floors. So it came out of a needed evil. You're going to need it at some point, because especially here in Texas, the soil is always shifting, so pipes are going to break, something is going to happen. So just out of that necessity for a service, and having to need service like that before in the past, and just always feeling like I was very limited in the scope that I can go and with the companies I can deal with. Just wanted to add a little bit of variety to that one, and also a bit of, when somebody is experiencing a loss, I don't want to be the one to come in there and compound that trauma. Come in there, treat it like my own place, and my main focus is to help them, because that's something where, okay, this is damaged, this is ruined, how am I going to get past this? So my biggest thing is being able to help people, because when I did in the Marines, it was also, take it back to there again. I've always been a public servant. So to be able to take it to this area and then have it to be a company that I run, I took a lot of pride in that.
Well, that's definitely a very noble quest for you. And I remember working in New Orleans, and we came across a lot of mold remediation and a lot of water damage. So I totally understand that it's a huge devastation. It's almost as bad as the fire.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize how important it is to take care of that issue prior for it being bigger issue. Because as we had discussed, a lot of insurance company, once you get into the whole mold issue,
Right.
that's when you really start running through the hoops.
Right. And that's a problem that I'm dealing with a client now. They had already contacted their insurance company and gave the insurance company information. And it's almost like you should be like, well, before you contact the insurance company, let me contact my lawyer, which will be the restoration company. Let the restoration company be your voice, because you will say something and then on page 72 of your policy, paragraph 3.4, exactly what you said here will be something that will disqualify your claim. And so there are the insurance companies. They'll give you a list of what your coverage is, and then the next one will be is like what's not covered, and then you'll have a small addendum behind it. Who's going to read through this much of paperwork? Nobody does.
And this is why you hand it to somebody that's in business. It's like your roofing companies.
Yep.
The same goes for your roofer. Contact your roofer first and let them
Let us deal
figure
with
out.
the insurance
Absolutely.
company, because we know what to say to them. We know what not to say to them. And the problem that I had now, I had a client who had a claim denied, and when I looked at what they said, it was they said that bad M word. Just a quick note: if you ever have mold damage in your house, do not say that to the insurance company. That is a bad M word. Mold, you will be denied. Mildew, on the other hand, that's covered.
That's a great point. That's definitely a great point. And then again, you may want to have your property inspected by a professional and make sure that you are indeed dealing with mold, because I deal with a lot of people that manage properties, and number one thing that people will mention, any kind of growth, I have mold in my house. And then you do not know exactly how to distinguish mold from mildew. And something that's as harmless as mildew is being perpetrated as mold, and then just because it's black color, it's not black mold. That's
Exactly.
And you have to be very careful with how you identify those things, because you could say to your insurance company, hey, I have mold, but in fact you have mildew, but there's no coming back.
There's
on
no
that.
coming. Once you put that out there to them, that's what they're going with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot like you just mentioned, a lot of people will say, well, they have black mold. I was like, well, how do you know? You can't look at it and tell what it is. You have to take a sample, and if you really want to know exactly what it is, it goes up to a lab.
Yeah, it's like you will not say you have diabetes without having a blood test.
Exactly.
You have to
There you
you
go.
have to poke your finger and figure out what it is that you have. High glucose, a low glucose. It's very important.
Yeah.
So what kind of brought you to this field altogether? Why mold remediation and
It's funny how everything comes full circle. I always tie everything back to my time in the Marines. I've always been an outdoorsy type person. I like public service and just being around people. So this venture, not only it gets me a chance to be outdoors, be around people, but I'm still continuing to help people, even after my service in the Marines was done. It's just helping them no longer in a life and death situation. Now it's more helping them as, help me save my apartment or help me save my house kind of a situation. And I've always been an advocate for, the people who will be in a situation where they can easily be taken advantage of. Because we all hear those nightmare stories about, a national disaster happens, and then all these fly-by-night companies will come in, open up, yeah, we'll help you, sign this, give us $1,000 down payment, then you never hear from them again. I saw that kind of stuff firsthand when I went down to to Houston for Hurricane Harvey. I didn't go down there to do any work. I went down there just to help. And I was down there with a friend of mine who owns a roofing company. He didn't go down there to do any work either. He just went down there with a flat bottom boat just to help people. And he was like, people were asking him, who can you recommend to help me? He was like, well, I do roofing, but I'm not down here to do roofing now. I'm just down there to help. Same thing with me. I just went down there just to help people. I went and volunteered at a food bank and helped, get food distributed to people who were stranded.
Wow, that's a real heroic move, and it's altruistic too. You weren't there to make any business or anything. You were literally there trying to help as a volunteer.
I don't see that as heroic. To me, that is, I was in a situation where I was able to help out my fellow man.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a true definition by hero, because any hero you ask, and they are not doing this.
It's the cliche thing for them to say, but I mean, that's how they really feel.
Absolutely, but without people like you guys, there are so many people that will be still stranded on the top of the roof.
Yes.
And I lived through Hurricane Katrina, so I know how detrimental it is for somebody to come and help. And there are so many people that are famous that trying to even build up on that fame. Like we were talking to one of our fellow friends that are stuntmen, and they were telling us how many times were people that are famous trying to exploit the equipment that they have, like, hey, take a picture of me doing this, and then just leave.
Right.
So, and that's...
They'll come pick up one case of water, put it down. Okay, guys, thank you.
Absolutely. So I find it very motivating, and makes me very happy that there are people like you that are out there that still under the radar and doing true things that help real people to survive this kind of detrimental situations. So tell us about Casey Reefer. What does Casey Reefer like?
Casey Reefer. Well, I do like classic cars. I've had an affinity for classic cars for, I don't know, maybe 20 years, and I've had a few. The classic car that I have right now, I have a 1967 Dodge Charger, fully restored. And I take it out on like weekend cruises and go to car shows. So I do like my classic cars, and also
Cars and Coffee.
I have not taken it to Cars and Coffee. Cars and Coffee is more for exotics. I mean, my car is an exotic car, but
yes, it is.
That's more like the Lamborghinis and Aston Martins and stuff like that. I take mine to some of the other classic car shows where there'll be everybody there has a classic car, because that's where I get to meet other guys and get their input on who do you go to for paint and who do you go to install air conditioning, because my car does not have air conditioning, so I can only drive it very limited time in the summer, early in the morning or late in the evening. Other than that, I'll roast.
Maybe right now, 36 degrees outside.
I'll pass. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Classic cars is one of my biggest hobbies, and I also like I like to hunt. I mean, living in Texas, I like to hunt.
What do you hunt?
Deer, and I go hunting wild pigs. And
wow.
That is it's a tricky one because they're smart and they're tough. Mm-hmm. So,
wild boar.
Yeah,
Woo!
I went hunting. A couple of friends and I, we went hunting a couple of nights ago. Actually, about a week ago, we went hunting and we shot about 7.
Oh wow!
And we recovered 5. The other 2, no, we hit them, but they took off and
to the hog doctor.
To the hog doctor.
I understand. So you mentioned you've been to Japan. Tell us about Japan. What did you like the most?
What I like the most about Japan is completely being able to submerge myself in the culture. Mm-hmm. I went over there as part of an advanced party to my unit, so I was on a small detachment. So I would go do my job during the day, and then at night on base, they had classes where they would teach you Japanese.
Ooh.
So I would go and take classes in Japanese. I befriended a few Japanese locals, and they took me to some of the places outside of the tourist areas. Mm-hmm. And I was able to speak and pick up all the inflections of the language, and then be able to talk to my friends conversational Japanese a little bit here and there. And then when I was speaking, there's like I don't hear an accent. So I've always taken pride in being able to
yes.
say that,
I absolutely love Japanese culture and the language, and for a while. I've been trying to pick up some words, but I'm still probably down to 10 sentences.
I forgot a lot. It was a while ago.
Yes, I recently learned different thank yous. There's arigato, and then
Arigato
there's
gozaimasu.
and itadakimasu for the food.
Yeah.
I just love it. Absolutely love it. So, have you ever been anywhere other than Japan?
Yeah. Actually,
I
maybe,
mean, Iran, Iraq.
yeah. Aside from those places, yeah. A couple of years ago, I went on a music tour. I was part of the Texas Red Dirt Pub Crawl.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was Operation Rock the Troops. It was part of a nonprofit venture where they took veterans over to Ireland, and we connected with all these musicians from the Texas Red Dirt Pub Crawl. And it was an amazing experience to be around so many talented musicians. And then me, I play the drums. A little bit. I learned how to play the drums several years ago.
Wow.
So being overseas, and a documentary was being recorded, and then being able to get on stage in Ireland, in Dublin, and play drums with some of these talented musicians, and I became friends with some
This
of
guy
them.
right here.
And I would say one of my favorite ones, is this band called Copper Chief. Absolutely love those guys. They are amazing, amazing musicians. There was so many, but I just developed a really good rapport with those guys. So we'd go out, we would film some things for the documentary. They would go out and they would have their concerts during the day around Dublin, and then at night we would have a jam session in the hotel we were staying at on their basement level.
Fun.
Those guys would come out there with their cajones and their acoustic guitars, and we'd be singing and playing music till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and get up
Wow.
and do it again.
That's exquisite.
That was an amazing experience.
I'm jealous. I want to learn to play drums.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting, and I love all the interests that you have. It looks like you're extremely diversified, from music to military to rescue to remediation.
Yes.
There is so much going on in your life. How do you have time for all of that?
You know what? Once again, it ties back to the military. I don't sleep that much, so I'll get up early, and even if I don't get up early, I have a friend who texts me early in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. Hey, get your day started, get your business rolling. He keeps me very much accountable.
Wow.
And so I'll go through the day, do my job during the day. Then at nighttime, I'll go home, I'll sit down, but I'm always at my desk, trying to get stuff lined up for the coming days, coming weeks, and of course trying factor in family time there, and make the most out of it. So I just feel like I'm more productive when I'm awake doing stuff instead of spending 8 hours sleeping.
Military man, they never stop. Go, go, go. I love that. So thank you for letting us know about everything that you do, about Casey Reefer, and what the kind of person that people, when they reach out to you, would deal with. And also, if someone is watching this and they're saying, okay, I don't know, how do I determine whether to call Casey or just call the plumber or just use my own vacuum cleaner, what would you suggest that they call, and how can they get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is for the phone number or the email listed below. There's always something that you can do to help Aqua Periit Restoration help you. In case of a flood, you're able to get some of the water out, but the equipment I have is able to get the stuff out in the sub-layers that the shop vac or your handheld vacuum cleaner just can't get out. So I do not only the water remediation, we do water, mold, smoke damage, and also do home sanitization, because right now the big fear is COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So I do have equipment and chemicals that kills the COVID virus.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's not your regular antibacterial soap.
This stuff is EPA registered, mm-hmm. and is hospital grade, and I use it in my house. And best thing about it is it's pet safe, because I have 2 dogs and they always want to be right next to me when I'm doing stuff, so I can spray it, and it doesn't require them to go into another room or anything like that. I can keep it with them around that.
That's a big deal.
It is, and I was real happy once I found out about that they have this now, that it's now, especially that it's certified through the EPA, and it's a hospital grade cleaner. So I've been doing the home sanitization, and as part of my way of giving back, I give discounts to veterans, first responders, and educators. Those are people who have always been on the front lines, and especially the now that we're seeing so many kids have to go to school from home. Now parents are like, man, the teachers really know my kids better than I know my own kids.
Absolutely.
So for educators, I always make sure I take care of them. And I just recently met with someone whose mother is in a nursing home. So now I'm trying to work out the logistics to go to that nursing facility and just do a complimentary sanitization, because I've always been feeling like I should put something good out, something good comes back, and people have always been able to extend a hand to help me. So my way of helping back is go and do a nursing home or something like that.
Exquisite. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think our elderly family members, they're definitely most susceptible to the virus. And I'm glad that someone as noble as you willing to help them and get that another protection layer and make
Right.
sure that they're safe where they're at.
Right, it's just another layer. You add enough layers of protection. I mean, you can never do anything that will 100% alleviate you from the problem. What you can do is create as much distance between yourself and whatever that pathogen is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I absolutely love this. And I hope you guys enjoyed this interview as much as I did. This was Casey Reefer with Aqua Periit.
Aqua Periit Restoration.
Please call him before you start dealing with any kind of water damage, smoke damage, remediation, or COVID prevention. Make sure that you call this guy right here and he'll take a great care of you. Thank you. This was As Real as They Come, Dallas. Please like, subscribe, share. We'll be more than happy to hear from you. Thank you.